We've been using and reviewing iPads on YouTube for over 4 years now, ever since the 2016 9.7-inch iPad Pro, back when we were making videos for Apple Insider. And we've been comparing Samsung Galaxy tablets to iPads ever since we started MaxTech. And there's one thing that has never changed. Apple's iPads were always a big step ahead of what Samsung had to offer. But for the last week, I've been using Samsung's brand new Galaxy Tab S7, and I honestly have to say that I wasn't expecting it to be this good. So before we dig deep into why, let's talk about how Samsung's previous flagship Tab S6 was worse than Apple's iPad Pro. Apple has had 120Hz ProMotion technology for the iPad Pro ever since 2017, making it feel so much more snappy compared to any Samsung tablet. Then in 2018, Apple completely redesigned the iPad Pro with square edges and a flat back, making it feel modern and much more premium compared to Samsung's Tab S6. Apple also added Face ID to the iPad Pro, making it a much better solution than the under-display fingerprint sensor on the Tab S6, which honestly wasn't very convenient. And in terms of performance, the iPad Pro was always more powerful. So with that said, let's get into the various ways that I can now confidently say that the Tab S7 has finally caught up to the iPad Pro. The first major change is that they completely redesigned the body with squared off edges instead of rounded ones and a completely flat back. And even though Samsung obviously copied the modern design of the 2018 iPad Pro, going as far as to match the same 11-inch display size, I'm glad they did because it honestly feels so much more premium. And to differentiate it just a bit, the sides now have a brushed metal finish instead of being matte on the iPad. They also redesigned the S Pen wireless charger on the back, which I think looks really nice. One subtle difference I noticed is that the speaker grills on the Tab S7 are machined in such a way that it aims the sound towards the user, which is pretty clever, and it seems to be working because the speakers are incredible. Just listen to this comparison. I'm also glad that Samsung got rid of the under-display fingerprint sensor, which wasn't very reliable due to having to get the finger placement perfect. This time, Samsung instead went with a simple one built right into the power button, which is great because you can turn on the display and authenticate with a single button press. Now, one thing I'm very glad Samsung upgraded is the display. It can now refresh at up to 120Hz, just like the iPad Pro. This was the absolute #1 feature that kept the iPad Pro ahead for so many years, and now Samsung has finally caught up. Apple's version is still better because the refresh rate automatically adjusts down to as low as 24Hz, depending on the content you're viewing, to help save battery life. But now that Samsung finally has 120Hz, the display feels super smooth and fluid, as you can tell from the slow motion comparison filmed at 120 frames per second. The other benefit that surprised me was that Samsung was able to get the latency of their S Pen down to 9 milliseconds, matching the latency of the Apple Pencil on the iPad Pro. That was one of the things that made the iPad Pro so great, and now Samsung has finally caught up on that front as well. Now, the one issue that I have with Samsung adding this feature is that they had to sacrifice their AMOLED display technology to add 120Hz on the 11-inch model. So in terms of the display quality, the iPad Pro is now beating out the Samsung in terms of the maximum brightness, the contrast quality, and the color quality as well, as you can see in this comparison. Now, what's interesting is that the larger Tab S7 Plus gets 120Hz refresh rate while maintaining the AMOLED display, so it's not a hardware limitation. They just chose to leave that feature to the larger and more expensive model. And that's actually the only difference between the Tab S7 and the 7 Plus. Everything else, including the chip, the RAM, and the storage, is identical. Because of that, we didn't even bother with buying or reviewing the more expensive Tab S7 Plus, since we think that most people would rather have the smaller 11-inch size. And to prove that, we ran a poll asking people which size they would prefer for tablets, not mentioning any specific brand name at all. And out of 8,000 people who voted, 61% said they would rather buy a smaller size. So it's a bit sad that Samsung didn't include the AMOLED display on the 11-inch model, but regardless of that, it still looks pretty decent, with high reflectivity being the only downside that really stands out. Now before we get into performance, I want to touch on one final design choice that Samsung actually copied from Apple, and I'm so glad that they did. Samsung added magnets into the body itself, just like the iPad Pro has had since 2018. So now, their keyboard cover attaches magnetically, and it holds on very well, just like Apple's Magic Keyboard case for the iPad Pro and the iPad Air 4. Samsung's previous Tab S6 actually had you stick the keyboard case onto the back of the tablet, which was really annoying, and it caused some issues with long-term reliability. But now, with those magnets, it's completely fixed. And I've got to say that I love how the keyboard case completely covers and protects the S Pen with a flap built into the case, which easily opens up for convenient access. It also has a flap for angle adjustability with a really solid metal hinge, and I really like the material of the case itself because it seems so much more resistant to scuffs and fingerprints than Apple's Magic Keyboard. I also like that you can actually detach the keyboard while leaving the case on the back for drop protection, which you can't do on the Magic Keyboard since it's built as one solid piece, so you have to lift the iPad Pro off to more conveniently use it as a tablet. And on the Tab S7, you can even fold the keyboard behind the tablet if you don't want to completely take it off, so it's super convenient. As far as the keys themselves, Samsung upgraded them with a more square shape, and they now honestly feel just a tad bit better than the ones on the iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard case. Now the trackpad, on the other hand, isn't that great. It uses a traditional diving board design, so it's hard to click at the top. The Magic Keyboard's trackpad is much better, with a unique design that's not only easier to click, but you get an even clicking feel anywhere on the trackpad. One thing for sure is that Samsung is focusing on making the Tab S7 a great laptop replacement in terms of a couple of design choices, including making the keyboard itself much better. But one thing you'll notice is that the front-facing webcam is no longer on the top, it's now on the side. So when you're using it with the keyboard case, the webcam is now perfectly centered at the top, just like a traditional laptop. The main issue with the iPad Pro is that when you're using a keyboard case, the webcam is off to the side, so it looks very awkward, almost like you're not paying attention to the person you're talking to. Check out this webcam and microphone comparison to see what I mean. This is the video and audio quality of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. This is the video and audio quality of the 2020 iPad Pro. This design choice makes it very clear that Samsung cares a lot about the Tab S7 being a laptop replacement, which brings us to Samsung's secret sauce, Dex Mode. It basically gives you a traditional PC-like UI that's very familiar to Windows, giving you multitasking and file management features that absolutely kill everything the iPad Pro has to offer, especially since the Tab S7 comes with a micro SD card slot for extra storage. Dex is so good that it single-handedly makes the Tab S7 a much better laptop replacement than the iPad Pro currently is. And an added bonus is that you can get 5G on the Tab S7, which you can't currently get on the iPad Pro, so that can be great for users on the go. The last thing we need to talk about before getting into the conclusion is the performance. So let's talk about the Snapdragon 865 Plus chip. Compared to last year's model, it's not that much faster, but it's still the second fastest mobile tablet as of right now, with the iPad Pro staying ahead in terms of both processor and graphics performance. However, when I compared the gaming experience using Call of Duty Mobile on both the Tab S7 and the iPad Pro, the Tab was every bit as fast, giving you an excellent gaming experience. So the extra power of the iPad Pro is simply overkill for the apps and games we have today, so the performance of the Tab S7 is more than enough for almost everyone. And you're getting that performance for only $650 instead of $800 with the iPad Pro, so you're truly getting a lot of value, especially since the S Pen is included, compared to paying $130 for the 2nd gen Apple Pencil. And on top of that, Samsung's keyboard case is only $200 compared to $300 for Apple's high-end Magic Keyboard. So if you want to get the full tablet experience, it's gonna cost you $1,230 on the iPad Pro and only $850 on the Tab S7, saving you $380. Now, of course, there's a reason why Apple's iPads are the best-selling tablets out there, and that's because of the iOS App Store and class-leading software support, which leads to iPads holding their value incredibly well. But if you don't really care about the software, or if you actually prefer Android, then the Tab S7 gives you way better bang for the buck, especially now that Samsung's Tab S7 with keyboard case bundle is currently on sale on Amazon for only $750, and you can find a link to that sale down in the description below. But to finally wrap up this review, I've gotta say, good job Samsung, because you absolutely killed it with your new Tab S7. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and tap the like button and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. And if you haven't yet seen the comparisons to the iPad Pro, you can watch them right over there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.